On Sunday, Tunisia extradited the last prime minister to serve under Muammar Gaddafi back to Libya. And now human rights groups say Baghdadi al-Mahmoudi faces a very real risk of being tortured. Well, let's discuss this with Press TV correspondent Lizzie Phelan. She's actually joining us live now from Nicaragua. Lizzie, Amnesty International condemned the decision of the Tunisian authorities, saying Mahmoudi faces torture, an unfair trial and possibly extrajudicial execution. And some reports suggest he's already suffered a beating in a Libyan jail. But in spite of all of this, it is still right that he should face justice, isn't it?
Well, look, I mean, if there are legitimate charges for Baghdadi al-Mahmoudi to answer to, it has to, of course, happen in an environment whereby he can face a fair trial, which there is nothing resembling that can happen in Libya at any time in the near future, because there is no such thing as institutions in Libya anymore. There is indeed no such thing as government. But it's very worrying, the ability by the right-wing Islamist faction, NATO in Tunisia, that they were able to surpass the Tunisian constitution. And we can only hope as well that the Muslim Brotherhood counterparts, now in power in Egypt, do not strike a deal also with the NTC, with some of their allies in the NTC, to extradite there's many thousands of Libyans, including former officials, living there, because to do so would be to subject those Libyans almost certainly to a fate of torture, like it has happened to the former Prime Minister, and as well has happened to Dr. Abu Zaid Dauda, the former permanent representative to the United Nations, and many other thousands of Libyans. And as Amnesty have said, also perhaps the fate of murder. But we must also ask, what are NADA's interests in cooperating with the NTC, which is clearly practicing systematic abuses? And this is an interesting question, because in cooperating with the NTC, which is only leading to the greater destabilization and fragmentation of Libya, as we are seeing unfolding every day, is essentially to serve the West's interests, who are very keen to see perpetual instability in Libya and in the wider region, so that, like in Iraq, that NATO's corporate elites can win contracts to supposedly pick up the pieces, which of course they will never do, because A, they are not in a position to pick up the pieces. It's only a Libya whose sovereignty is respected that can do that. And it's neither in their interest to pick up the pieces, because otherwise they won't make any money out of pretending to pick up the pieces. And it's also in the West's interest that important members of the Jamahiriya government, like the former Prime Minister and Dr. Abu Zaid Dauda, who is facing a sham trial in a kangaroo court currently in Libya, remain subjugated, because amongst those members and those hundreds of thousands of Libyans who have now fled the country, many of whom are in neighbouring Egypt and Tunisia, amongst them are the people who know how to build a stable Libya with strong and well-functioning institutions necessary for society to function. But the West doesn't want strong institutions or a well-functioning society in Libya. It wants eternal anarchy and chaos like that which we are seeing today.
Is there not hope? Is there not hope that we could see that? I mean, after all, they're due to hold their first direct elections for Congress that will be tasked with overseeing the government over the elections, drafting a constitution. I mean, is that not, though, a sign that democratic change could be underway in Libya, briefly?
Perhaps on the face of it, but if you look at actually what is happening on the ground, continues to be a systematic persecution, imprisonment and torture of anybody who doesn't agree with the different militias running different parts of the country and the NTC, and particularly persecution of people who support the former Jamahiriya government. So it is ridiculous to hold elections in such an environment of persecution of large sections of the population. And some estimates put the refugee population of Libyans who have fled the country at up to 2 million. We're talking about almost 1/3 of the population. The former population of Libya was 6 million. So how are those Libyans going to participate in the future building of their country? No, the only way that real democracy and genuine elections can take place is once the NTC and of course the NATO powers are continuing to interfere and support one side against the other. Once that stops and the persecution of certain sections of Libyan society stops, so that all Libyans can participate in the future of their country.
I know you're talking a lot from experience, because you spent a lot of time there in Libya. Just briefly and finally, the revolution then, from what you're saying, hasn't been a success, but there are many saying it was a necessary move to get rid of Colonel Gaddafi, and the future is brighter. But what's your view? Was the revolution worth it after all of that?
Well, I mean, I would call it an insurgency that overthrew a legitimate and sovereign government under international law, and obviously a revolution implies progress. And let's look at what the concrete results of the insurgency in Libya have been. The concrete results have been hundreds of thousands of dead, continuing fighting every day. There's reports of certain militias bombing parts of Libya, the persecution of the large migrant population from sub-Saharan Africa, black-skinned Libyans, the complete destruction of all institutions necessary for society to function, the complete destruction of normal functioning daily life. People can't go to school, university normally, tens of thousands of people are in prison. So if this is the result, and I know there have been many reports of Libyans, including in the mainstream media, even some who supported the insurgency against the former Libyan government, who are now lamenting the loss of the former system, and under which they lived in a country which had achieved the highest standard of living in Africa, a high level of development, and were really doing very well on all social indicators. Now all of those achievements have been reversed.
Press TV correspondent Lizzie Phelan, thanks very much indeed for that, live there in Nicaragua.
Thank you.